Masechta Horayos Daf Dalid Amud Aleph is starting from 2 lines in the bottom of Gimel Amud Beis. We learned in the Mishnah Machlokes between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Elazar when somebody sits in his house and he paskined he ate the chaylev according to the Eira of Bezdin, even if the Bezdin retracted. Nevertheless, Ameya says he's chayv achatos because it's still considered as teil ba'atzmai, even though he didn't know that Bezdin retracted. And Rabbi Shimon says it's considered ketel bebezdin because he could have found out. Let's learn it now. We're going to learn in the Braisa. Tani, we learned with an additional shita. We learned in the Braisa, Bezdin paskin, and Bezdin became aware that they made a mistake and retracted, and this person continued to eat the chaylev after Bezdin had retracted. Rabbi is mechayev the chatas because he considers it as teil be'atzmei, because he should have found out that Bezdin retracted. Rabbi Shimon Peter. Rabbi Shimon said he's patel gamri, and he's considered toila bebezdin. Rabbi Elazar has suffix. It's a suffix of his chayv achatas, and therefore he has to bring asham toli. Mishum sumchas amru tolui. He says, what does it mean toli? Not asham toli. Toli. This whole union of asham, whether it's a suffix, if he could have found out or not, is far-fetched, and we're Taylor more the tzad of that he didn't that he was Taylor bebezdin is more the mistake that he made, and therefore he's going to be pater. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Asham Tali Ikebenayu. The machlekes between Rabbi Elazar and Sumchis is benegayed to bring Asham Tali. According to Rabbi Elazar, he chayv Asham Tali, and according to Sumchis, he's pater. Amar Rabbi Zayda. Rabbi Zayd is going to give a mashal to the shita of Rabbi Elazar. Why are you going to be chayiv asham tali? The mashal of Rabbi Elazar that he says one was over, if the Bezdin had already retracted, he's still going to be chayiv asham tali. What is this compared? To a case where a person ate fats and he didn't know if it was the Issa the Kefats, the Chaylev, or was a Shumah the Mutter the Kefats. And then afterwards he became aware that this piece is a suffix. He didn't know. He doesn't know what to do. So there, in such a case, when he became aware that it was a suffix, Chaylev, suffix, Shuman, he brings Asham Tali, because maybe Bahamas he ate Chaylev. And this whole thing of Asham Tali is a protection for him, like we learned previously, that he shouldn't get hurt, so this is a kapara for the meantime. And the Asham Tali is over here, in our case, maybe it's Bahamas considered Ketela Ba'atzmai, and therefore he should be pater, but maybe, no, he should have found out about it and he should be chayiv, and that's why, in our case, it's similar that it's Asham Tali. And for sure, in a case where, according to the Mandama, that says that the Tzibur is the one that brings the Parhalam Dava, so there the Tzibur themselves were bringing it, so the Mefarsim and Milsa, so it was publicized that Bezdin retracted, so he should have found out about it. Nevertheless, we consider it as a suffix, that because Lavdavka, it's not for sure considered as ketela ba'atzmai. We still consider it ketela, also ketela bebezdin, and therefore he's going to have to bring asham tolel. I feel the mandiyama, but even according to the mandiyama, bezdin mavim, that bezdin is the one that brings the pars of the learned pars of Milsa. That there was no way of him finding out because Bezdin brings the par helam dava. So how would he have ever found out? So we say no. He could have found out. If he would have asked, they would have said, people would have told him that Bezdin retracted. And since there's a tzad that it's shaykh that he was able to ask, so it should be considered Toila be'atzmai, not Toila be'atzmai. That's why it's a strong suffix and it's Chai ba'ashim Toli. Amar Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Abba had said, V'item Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Zvida. Others say Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Zvida. Marshal the Sumches We'll bring you now a mashal for Sumchis that he patters from Hashem Toli if he continued to eat chaylev if the Bezdin retracted. To what is this compared? To somebody who brought a kapara, his kapara, let's say, his chatas between twilight time. So his kapara, it's a suffix if he brought it b'beid yom and he became forgiven. It was a kapara, because the only time that you can bring a kapara is only by day. But suffix meshechashchan is kapara. It's a suffix if no, maybe the kapara was the behem was brought, the carbon was brought already by night, and therefore it's not going to be a kapara. So in such a case, maybe Hashem Tali. In such a case, we're not going to say he brings Hashem Tali, because you need a tzad gomel lechiyuv. Here, it's not a tzad gomel lechiyuv. First of all, most probably he tried to bring it by day and he worked very hard. So it could be he even brought it before Ben Hashmashis, because it's Gehet of Hayin, the time of by Ben Hashmashis when it turns dark. But since a person is a person wants to bring a kapara by day, of course, and it's very hard to know which if it was day or night. But since he wanted very much to bring it by day, and it's more probable that he brought it by day, so therefore he doesn't bring Hashem Toli, because you don't have a tzad gomer to say there's a real suffix that it was nighttime. So too, somebody who didn't know that Bezdin retracted, you can't consider it Teila be'atzmai as one tzad versus the tzad Teila be'bezdin. There's more probability that there was Teila be'bezdin than Teila be'atzmai. Just like when he brought a carbon ben hashmashis, since he was working so hard to bring it by day as a kapara, he probably brought it right in the day part, and maybe even before ben hashmashis. So there's more tzad that he brought it on time than not on time. And the same thing, there's more of a tzad to say he was Teila be'bezdin versus than the tzad to say that it was Teila be'atzmai, and he could have asked. That's a smaller Pesach, a smaller opening than the tzad that says that it was Teila be'bezdin. The Gemara adds, and for sure, according to Mandi Amma, that Bezdin, the Viyin, that the Bezdin brings a Pahalam Dava, the Loi Ipasim Milsa, meaning, according to his opinion, surely it's not considered Ketela Be'atzmai, and Bezdin brings the Pahalam Dava, the Loi Ipasim Milsa, because it wasn't this Pasim that Bezdin retracted. That's according to Mandama, that Bezdin is the one that brings the Parhelim, so there was no way of him finding out. So for sure, the tzad of Teila be'bezdin was much stronger. But even according to Mandama, that who brings the Parhelim Tzibur? The Tzibur brings it, so it became Mefursim that Bezdin retracted. So maybe this is more of a equal suffix, a real suffix, that he should have to bring Hashem Tali, because the Mefasim B'Milsa, because it became a person, it became publicized, and they told him that Bezdin retracted. Says Gemara, no, the Hacha, because this case is like a suffix, meaning there's more tzad to say that he brought the carbon b'beid yaim. Here also, it's more reason to say it was Teila be'bezdin than Teila be'atzmai, because he showed lo yashkach inish l'mishayle. Because even if he wanted to ask why the tzibur is bringing a par, it's possible that he wouldn't be able to find a person to ask. So it's not 100%. It's not 100% equal. Teila be'bezdin is more of a tzad that I would weigh with, and therefore I wouldn't bring Hashem Tali, because Hashem Tali is only when it's a real suffix. The Mishnah brought down the opinion of Rabbi Akiva that he partes from Hashem Tali, one who went to Medina Sayyam, and he did according to Bezdin, even if the Bezdin retracted. Then the Mishnah brought the Ben Azai's words with Rabbi Akiva. Amalei Ben Azai. Ben Azai said, "Ma'ishna, how is the case of going to Min Sayam any different Min Hayeshiv than somebody who's sitting in his house that is Chayv Hashem Toli? Why shouldn't somebody who's going to Min Sayam who bring eats chaylev after Bezdin retracted also have to bring Hashem Toli?" So Rabbi Akiva answered, somebody who's sitting in his house, he was able to listen and find out that Bezdin retracted. That's why he's Chayv Hashem Toli. But this person who went to Medin Zayam was unable to find out. So you want to shop a Kamalei, Rabbi Akiva Ben Azai. Rabbi Akiva said well to Ben Azai, meaning his taina was good, that he should be part of one who was going to Medin Zayam. There was no way of him finding out. So that's the Gemara. Shop a Kamalei, Rabbi Akiva Ben Azai. So what's talking the taina Ben Azai? Why should somebody who goes to Medin Sayam have to bring a carbon, Hashem Tali? There was no way of him finding out. The Machlekes is talking about that he's still in his house, but he's already on his way out, and in his mind he's already going to Medin Sayam. So Leben Azai Chayv, he's still Chayv Hashem Tali. But basically he's still found in his house in the city, and he's able to hear that Bezdin retracted. Rabbi Akiva Potter, according to Rabbi Akiva, he's Potter because the house Baderech, since he's preoccupied about going on his trip, so it's impossible for him to be able to hear that Bezdin retracted, and therefore it's considered Teila Bezdin, and he's Potter from Hashem Tali. When the Gemara goes to the piece of the Mishnah where it says Hageloi Bezdin Lakas Kol Aguf, that Bezdin made a psak to uproot one of the Yisurim of that Torah. Like they said, ain't need about Torah. There's no din of need about Torah. Ain't Shabbos about Torah. There's no Shabbos about that Torah. Ain't Avetz Kecham about Torah. All these cases, they're potter from Par Halam Davar because Bezdin is kind of like amazing. Karul amazing. Tanu Rabbanan Yizag, you learned, it says in the Torah by Par Halam Davar Shal Tzimah, Benelam Dava. It says it will conceal something. Not that it will uproot the whole mitzvah. Like Gemara Ketz, what's the case? Amru, or they said in Shabbos Batei, they said there's no din of Nida or Shabbos or Avetz Yicham Natera. Yachal, I would have thought Yehayam, they should be Chayiv Apay Halam Dava, Tamalem Nelam Dava. It says that they concealed one prat, relation Salah Mitzvah Kula, not that the whole mitzvah they uprooted. They said that there's no such a mitzvah. Therefore, the potter from a Halam Davar because they're Karol Amazit. If they said there is the din of Nida Batera for the meaning for the first 7 days if somebody becomes Tameh, a woman becomes Tameh, she has to wait 7 days, but in the 11 days, if they see 1 or 2 days that she's only Shemeres Yoim of Tara, so if they say there's no such a thing, the concept of Shemeres Yoim connected Yoim, then and they say he's potter. So they Shabbos Batei, they said there's a din, the concept of Shabbos Batei, but if somebody who does the Malach of Haitzah, he's potter, or he says yes, he's potter, meaning there's no such Malacha, only that Prat and Shabbos, or yes, there is the Indian of worshipping idols, which is a is in the Torah, but just bowing potter. I would have thought that they should be potter. That they only were concealed a prat in the mitzvah, in the mitzvah say, or in the iser, but like kolaguf, they didn't uproot the whole guf of the iser, and therefore they're going to be chayiv to bring. If Bezdin made such a psak, they're going to be chayiv par halam dava. These are things that are hard to understand. So he says, because the E came a mitzvah, so people mitzvahs pturim, because if you're going to say by some, if part of the mitzvah, meaning part of the Easter is asa, but being mevat part of the Easter is pater from a, if they instructed the people about one mitzvah, or one Easter, that part of the Easter is also, part of the Easter is not, there's no Easter, and you would say to them they were potter from a Pahalam Davar, like the Tana wanted to say, Uvakidis Kol Aguf. and by uprooting a whole mitzvah, the Bezdin will be part of Pahalam Dava. So, b'mai chayam, in which case would you then say that the Bezdin would be Chayva Pahalam? The Torah says that there's a case where Sanhedrin would be Chayva Pahalam Dava. But if you're saying, if the Gemara had a Havamina by even by Kiyam Mitzvah, Mixas, or Bita Mixas, where they're being Mekayim part of the Isa, and part of the Isa, they're saying it is, and they're being Mevatel, they're part of Pahalam Dava, and by uprooting all mitzvahs for sure, part of Pahalam Dava. So where is the Torah saying that they're Chayam? It's like Gemara Tana, like this is what the Tana meant to ask. Ema, what was the Havamina of the Tana? He meant like this. Maybe we should say Lehepech. Dava Kulamil Samashma is mashma that the whole he uprooted the whole mitzvah. The Kavanah is Venelam Dava, if he uprooted the whole Isur, meaning then in such a Eifin Bezdin would be Chayva Pahalam Dava. And this the Braisa answered, no, Tamalim Venelam Dava, it's mashma. The Kavanah is only if it's mixes of the Isur that they were Mavatal, not the whole Isur. The whole Isur, they would be Potter. How do you see from the words of Venelam Dava that it means that the Mavatal only part of the Isur? So read, because it says Venelam would have Schlossbem, so the mem could be used for the word for before and the word after, as if it says Venelam Midava. And it's used for both words. The Schlossmem side for the Venelam and for side for the Dava, you had the mem. So according to this, it's talking about that the Bezdin was paskin on only being mevatel mitzvah midava, not the whole dava. Chisyama Abakrat says in the pasuk, it says mi kol mitzvahs, of the mitzvahs, like kol mitzvahs, not all the mitzvahs. So that means part of a mitzvah, not the whole mitzvah. That they were mevatel part of the mitzvah. But it says mitzvahs, mashma. So it's mashma. We're talking about two mitzvahs. So amongst a whole bunch of mitzvahs, he was one whole mitzvah, whole in a mitzvah, and we said that's not shaykh. Amar Rav Nachman Rav Yitzchak mitzvahs ksiv. It's not written mitzvah is plural. It's mitzvahs v'loshen yachid, and he's telling you that what does it mean? That he will do mikol mitzvahs of in the mitzvah itself, or part of the mitzvah, that he's not going to be mekayim on that. Bezdin will have to bring up Pahalam Dava. Ravashi learns out that how do we know only is a mekayim mixas, mevatel mixas, only there you're going to be chayiv. The Bezdin will be chayiv by Pahalam Dava. Ravashi Yama Yolav, he learns it out with Exeg Shava Dava Dava from Zakim Mamre. The Chsiv, it's written by Zakim Mamre Ki Yipala Mincha Dava. It says the word Dava. And it says also by Parhelam Dava, it says Venelam Dava. Ma, just like by the Zakim Mamre, the Torah says Min Hadava, it's mashma a part of, meaning Mekayim mitzvahs and mevatel mitzvahs, v'loy kol hadava, not uprooting the whole dava. Afin hayda. So too, when it comes to hayda Bezdin, dava, only when will there be chai par halam dava? It's only dava, only mekayim mitzvahs and mevatel mitzvahs, v'loy kol haguf, and not being mevatel the whole mitzvah. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, ein Bezdin chayam, Bezdin is not chayam par halam dava, sheyir v'dav shein, that's they can make them bay, till they give up psak in something which the tzedaikim disagree with, because they only went according to what's written in the Torah. So any drasha, if Bezdin made a mistake and passing against what the drasha says, that's what they have to bring a par helam dava. But what's if they paskin erroneously, even with the tzedaikim amida, which means something that's been explicitly written in the Torah? Then they're part of my pahalam dava. In fact, one of my time now. What's the reason for it? Zil krei bei Rav. Let them go and read it from the Chumash by a regular teacher, and they will see what the halach is. And the Zil Rav, meaning sadava pashit, even to nakes, even little children know it. And since it's possible for anybody to know this halacha, so it's karev lemezit, and therefore they shouldn't be able to bring a pahalim dava. Okay, Zog the Gemara, and that's what he says. That's the psak. It cannot. So therefore, if it's on something that's written the fetish and the Torah, they won't bring a pahalim dava. Now we learned now Mishnah yesh nidva Torah, but abar shemeres yom keneged yoim, asher meres yoim keneged yoim pater. But if somebody who lives with a woman who became tummy in the 11 days, and that woman was supposed to watch that day, the next day to be of being tara and live with her is pater. So in such a case, where they paskin is pater, the chayav apayal bezdin is chayav apayalam dava. Why should bezdin be chayav apayalam dava according to the words of Rabbi Yehuda? Shemeres yom keneged yoim haksiva. It's written the fetish in the Torah that Shemeres Yom Keneged Yom has to keep 1 day of Tara. With Safrala, it says Befetish with Safrala. She counts 1 day of Tara Yom Echad for 1 day of Tamei. So this is considered as a case where even it's Daikaman because it's written explicitly in the Torah, and in such a case we said, if Bezdin paskins erroneously, they're not chayv payalam dava. And the Gemara, the Amri, our Mishnah is talking about, they said hara, the beginning of bia has a din like shemeres yom keneged yom shaya. If there was only the beginning of bia but not a complete bia, then it's mutter. Only gma bia who does it. Only if it's a complete bia, that's where it's aser. And really hara is also aser. And if she was tummy 1 day in the 11 days, she would have to keep 1 day of Tara. Even Hara should be in Minatayr is also. But the Bezdin would pass and it's mutter. That's where they bring up Har Helam Dava. In fact, Gemara makes if this din of Hara on the day that she has to keep Tara and the man lives with her is also written b'ferish and Atayr as Mekeda Hara. So surely the Tzedek Mameda in such a case, it's b'ferish and Atayr that on the day that she has to keep Tara, even if it was the beginning of Bia, it's going to be Asa. So even if Bezdin paskin erroneously, they shouldn't have to bring a Paralam Dava because it's something that's written beferish in the Torah. The Amri Kedar Kasira. They say only if she lived with her husband in a normal way, then it's going to be a sort of if she lives on the day that she has to keep Tara. Shalai Kedar Kashaya. But if it was the abnormal way, so then it's going to be Mutter. How could you say that? That's also written with Fetish on the Torah. Mishkevei Isha. Mishkevei is the Lashon Rabbin. It's mashma, and no matter if it's the normal way or the non-normal way, she has to keep a day of Tara and not allowed to go close to her husband, even Shalei Kedarka. So how could you? And if Bezdin passes erroneously that it's mutter, they shouldn't have to bring up Payalam Dava. The Gemara Dama Kedarka Asur Afilu Hara. So the Gemara says it means Kedarka is also even Hara. But be it Shalai Kedarka, Dafke if it's a Gemar Bihuda Asa, Hara Shaya. But by Bia Shalai Kedarka, only if it's a Gemar Bi, it's going to be Asa. But Hara is going to be Mutter. So that's what he wanted to say. It's talking about that the Bia Kedaka is Asa even at the beginning if it's Kedaka. And by Bia Shalai Kedaka, they want to say it has to be a Gemar Bia. But Hara is going to be Mutter if it's Shalai Kedaka. That's what they were going to be Matem, which is not written in the Torah. If they pass in that erroneously that it's Mutter, they would have to bring a Pahalam Dava. In fact, if so, why did the Mishnah have to catch on to a case of Shemeres Yom Keneged Yom? We spoke about in the beginning of the Mishnah the concept of Nida. If they said there's no din of Nida, Yahachi, in that they should have said Afilu Nida Nami. By Nida itself, they could have said part of the Nida would be Mutter if it was Shaloi Kedarka. If by Shaloi Kedarka it has to be a Gemar Bia, but if it's just the beginning of Bia, it'll be Mutter. Why didn't they say that by Mamish the din of Nida? Why'd you have to chop on a case of Shemeres Yom Keneged Yom? Only Bam is the Mishnah is talking about that Bezdin was Mata Hara B'Bia Kedarka. And Uda Hamdi, and this that she asked Hara is Mefresh the Torah is talking about Hara B'Ishadava. It's only Hara by a Nida, it says that it's going the Udach, that's what the Torah says. It's forbidden to be together with a woman while she's a Nida. But in the Torah does not say in the other 11 days that Hara is Asr, and they paskin that it's Mutter. So on that they bring, would have to bring a Pahelam Dava. If you want, I could tell you another answer. They say that a Zava, a woman is not considered a Zava, or only if she saw the dam in the day, but not at night. Because by Zava it says, call you May Zava. It's mashmat that the Ziva, the release of the dam of Ziva has to be by day. And it's not true, it's even by night. But we learn it out from a limud. But it's doikim are not made to that drasha. And since the Sanhedrin paskin betos that it's mutter, if it's not considered as a ziva if she saw it by night, and which is wrong. On that, they would have to bring a palam dava because the tzedaikim hold that night is not considered. They don't hold up the drasha that if the woman saw by night, it's considered as ziva. Okay, now we learned in the Mishnah. It says yes, Shabbos b'Torah, but Amitz Mishus Shus Pater. It says there's the concept of Shabbos b'Torah, but the Melacha of Haitzah is Pater. Why should Bezdin be chayiv for this erroneous psak? Paskening Haitzah is mutter. Haitzah ksiva. Haitzah is written explicitly in the Torah. It's forbidden. It says, "Let's say see you masm lateicha b'yom Shabbos." So this is even tzedaikim ameida. And if it's tzedaikim ameida, and Bezdin paskin erroneous psak where it's tzedaikim ameida that it's aser, they shouldn't be chayiv apayalam dava. Here's the l'chayda. You see, even tzedaikim agreed to navi, limudim from the navi, from the psukim of navi. And the Gemara Damri over here says Hitzah. Only Hitzah it says in the Torah. Hitzah Mishusayach is Udasa Achnasa. But if they pass in erroneously Achnasa is Mutter, even the tzedaikim hold its Mutter because it's not written explicitly in the Torah. By saying, if you want, I can tell you another answer. Damri Hitzah Achnasa Udasida. They hold both as Asa. But Moishit is Zaydik. But taking out with the hand from one rishus to another, or standing in one place, or throwing from one rishus to another, shari is mutter. And this, Bezin passing erroneously, they would have to bring a pa'ilam davar because the tzedaikim wouldn't agree to it. Now we learned in the Mishnah, this is the concept of potter. But somebody who bows is going to be potter. What about my? Why should they be chayiv on Mishnachbe if they gave this erroneous psak? Mishnachbe is mutter pa'ilam davar. The Zara is a ksiv that says, "Beferish in the Torah ksiv leits nishtachel lekelacher leelacher." You shouldn't bow to any other god, and even the tzedaikim hameida and what the tzedaikim hameida and the best passes erroneously against that is part of a pile of davar. And Gemara, the Amra ki asida this that the Torah asks the ishtachaviyah is kedaka. If that's the derech of the hameida Zara to serve that way. Like you have the parade, that's not the derech to bow to, it's to make on it, or makulis is to throw stones, but not to bow to it. It's muteres. I would have thought it's muter if you bow to these others, and that's what they paskin, and they would hold also it's muter. So there. Bezdin would be chayiv pa'ilam davar. By saying, if you want, I'll tell you another answer. The Amri is talking about Yishtachaviyah gufa kedaka udasa. The isma pish yadayim raglayim. Only if he spreads out his hands and feet. That's the type of Yishtachaviyah that's going to be asa. But Yishtachaviyah, the leizba pish yadayim raglayim, where he doesn't spread out his hands and feet. Shaya is muteres. And that's the case where Bezdin would be chayiv apel halam dava, turning to Talmud Beis. Vayir Rav Yosef gefragt Ashayla. Ein charish b'Shabbos. There's no charish on Shabbos, and the Reva call paskin did Charisha on Shabbos because the Bezdin said there's no Malacha al Charisha. Ma, what's the din? Are they Chai Pahalam Dava? I mean, keep the Kameda Bikul Milsa. Do we say, since they made and all the other 38 Malachis that are Asab Shabbos, Kibitul Mixas, we keep Mixas Dami. It's considered as being only Mevatel part of the Mitzvah and being Mekayim the rest of the Mitzvah. Or perhaps. Since they're uprooting the whole malacha of charisha, kakir is good for dami. It's considered as being a whole goof of the isa. So if you want to touch my coming here, I'll bring a right from the Mishnah. Yes, he's the batera. There's a isa of the batera of Alba. Al shemeres yom connected yohim potter. But in the 11 days, if somebody who lives, who was a woman who was tummy one day, who has to keep l'chayra another day of Tara, and the Bezdin says she doesn't, then the Chayiv B'Halam Dava. B'Hamai, HaKarya, and Shemeres Yem, Kedek Yem Kalika, they uprooted this whole din in the 11 days that you have to keep one day of Tara corresponding the day of Tumah. So it's just like over there, you don't consider it as that being Oika, the whole mitzvah of Nida, it's not considered as Oika, a whole concept of Shemeres Yem, Kedek Yem. So too, Charish is not considered as being Eike, the whole, the Malacha, of it's not considered as a Gufa Kol Ika. It's not considered as being Eike Kol Ika a Malacha. Rabbi Yisrael will answer, you can answer, no, there's no right from there. Shemeres Yom Kidamina. Shemeres Yom, you could say the Mishnah is like we said before, from the Pratim of the Isser, that we said that the Hara would be mutter if it was the Shalai Kedaka or the Iya. We're talking about in the Shemeres, we're talking about a detail, or the Iya by night is mutter. So so we're not talking about the whole concept of Shemeres Yom Keneged Yom. Here we're talking about the whole Charisha, so maybe it's different. Tashma, coming here, and the Gemara tries to answer from here. Yes, I'm Potter. What I saw is Potter. But my Karyan, Lahitza, Kolika, he got rid of the whole malacha of Hitza. They're also like we answered earlier on. Either only Hitza is Asa, but Hachnas is Mutter, or maybe the Zrika and the Hishata, or Hishata and Zika is going to be Mutter, and all the rest of the rest are Asa. So he's not being oikid the homalacha by itself. Tashma, so the Gemara starts coming here. I'll answer you from here. When I get to Charisha, if he says Charisha is mutter, if they have to bring a pile of dava. Yes, she said Avit Zicham Bater. They say Avit Zicham Bater. Aval Mishnah Kumet Potter. But somebody who bows to Avit Zaris, the Bezdin says that if somebody who bows to Avit Zaris Potter, the Chayiv a pile of dava. V'amai, v'akayan, lisi shtachaviyah, kol ikot. They were oiked the whole Indian of bowing to Avodah Zarah, the whole concept. So they didn't get rid of the whole concept of Ishtachaviyah. They said, in Ishtachaviyah has to be Bepishi Yadayim Reglaim, and they made a chilukim if it's Bepishi Yadayim Reglaim or not. Or if it was to Avodah Zarah that you don't normally serve to bowing. So, but bowing Bechlal is also, they didn't get rid of the concept of bowing. Here we want to get rid of the whole concept of Charisha. But Rab Zera said, I'll bring you a right from here. It says, Ein Shabbos b'Shviyas. There's no Shabbos b'Shviyas. And the Rebbe called, followed, Mao, what's the din? B'maito, in fact, no matter what did they make a mistake in? But Hadain Likra. In the Pasuk, it says, Sheishes Yom Tavai, Vayem Ashvi Tishbeis. And the Pasuk continues, but B'charish V'akotza Tishbeis. Bezdin made a mistake and dashed the Pasuk. B'zman Ike Charisha. In the time when there's the malacha of charisha, when you're allowed to do the charisha, that's when the charisha is going to be asa. And there's the din of Shabbos. There's the din of Shabbos. Ubizman the lake charisha, but in the year of Shvi where you're not allowed to do charisha, like a Shabbos. I say there's no concept of Shabbos. So here you see that you got rid of the whole Shabbos, and we consider it no, as it's only partial. So after the Gemara, so the Gemara is first being the Gemara. I'm sorry, we can't bring a raya anything yet. So the Gemara, after the Gemara explained what was the mistake of Bezdin, so the Gemara explains that Sadeh Hasafik. We say, given the Mekhaim Bish'osh Shnei Shavua, since they were Mekhaim the Isov Shabbos in the other 6 years of the Shemitah, so it's Kibitul Mikzas, Vekim Mikzas Dami. It's like being Mevatel, part of the Isov Shabbos, and part of being Mekhaim in the other 6 years of Shemitah. Oidimo, perhaps, given the Karyan lay. Since the being Eike Shabbos Legami B'Shana Hashmiya is Kakiris Kol HaGuf Dami, it's considered as uprooting the whole guf of Shabbos, the whole concept of Shabbos. Avinu said, Tashmar, come in here and I'll answer you. Navi is not like her Legami David Medivya Torah. Navi who had a Navias to be Eike completely one of the mitzvahs of the Torah. Chayv is Chayv Misa. If he had a Navias, Lebitul Mitzvah Lekim Mitzvahs, to be Mevatel part, but to be Mekayim part. Reb Shimon Potter. Reb Shimon says he's Potter, but that's Dafka from one of the mitzvahs chutz from Avodah Zarah, and he wants to say even if he's Mekayim mixes, he's Mevatel mixes, Mekayim mixes, he's there. It's he's still going to be chayiv. So the Gemara said, I'm sorry, he's going to still. He's gonna be chayiv, which is the case of mixas. So he says, tomorrow get rid of that. It's not don't serve that. It's chayiv misa. It's chayiv misa. So he's we're talking about a navi. Shouldn't stop a laka. We said b'chal is chayiv misa, and Shimon says it's potter. But we said, but for bitul mikzas, only if he's uprooting navi that uproots completely adav minatei is chayv misa. But what's if he's misnave bitul mikzas or kim mixes? Reb Shimon says it's butter. But there's one exception, even by kim mixes or bitul mixes, by Avodah Zarah, that the navi will be chayv misa. What does he consider as bitul mixes and kim mixes? By he says today we serve Avodah Zarah and tomorrow now, not. Shmami, not the same thing. What is considered kim mixes or bitul mixes? By Shabbos. Ain't Shabbos v'shvius, only in shvius is bitul mixes or kim mixes dummy. Because we're saying that Shabbos in the other 6 years you should be Mekayim. Only in Shabbos v'shvius you're not Mekayim. Shmami, no. So you can learn out from this Maraisa that kim mitzvah and bitul mitzvah by Shabbos, even if it's Shabbos 1 year, he says you should be mevatel, it's still considered as key mitzvahs or bitul mitzvahs. Just like when the Navi is you wanted to say that Navi is potter by key mitzvahs or bitul mitzvahs for Misa, and in what case did he give up key mitzvahs or bitul mitzvahs? It was by Avodah Zarah. He says today you should serve Avodah Zarah and tomorrow not. So too by Shabbos of Shvius he says all the 6 years you have to be Mekayim Shabbos, and Shvius not being Mekayim Shabbos, so you have a raya that's called Kim Mixes with Bitul Mixes. But Per Mamish, the Gemara didn't answer for Charisha if he's being Mevatel, the whole Malach of Charisha, if it's considered as being Mevatel called Gufay, or just it's considered still as Bitul Mixes with Kim Mixes. Okay, Zak the Mishnah, Heidu Bezdin Yoda Echat Mehem Shetohu, Bezdin gave up Sak, and one of the Yonim knew that they made a mistake. I'm telling at them. He said to finish them, you guys are making a mistake. It was Meicha. Or the Rosh Hashiva, the Mufla Bezdin is the Gadol from the Dayanim, who's called also the Rosh Hashiva, wasn't there. Or there was one of the from the Sanhedrin Bezdin that was a Ger or Mamza. Or Zaken that's not fit to have children. All these cases, and he won't have Rachmanis. So you can't keep him on a Bezdin. Because only if he has children will he have Rachmanis. And he's a Potter. So this, if Bezdin Paskin, erroneously, they're going to be Potter Mipahalam Dava. Rosh Hashiva is usually that you have to have it sitting there in order to ask, to make sure the Paskin is right. And a Ger and a Mamza and a Nos, not possible. And the Zaken that doesn't have children has no Rachmanis. The Mishnah teaches us the market tradition. Kan, it says by Parhalam Dava Eida. And by Din Fashis, it says also Eida. Ma Eida Hamurun Lahalan. Kulan Ru'in Lahira, just like the Eida which is said by Din Fashis. All of them have to be fit to be Dayanim. And it cannot be a mamza or nasan, or it cannot be somebody without children. So too, and you need the Rosh Hashiva, the Rosh Hashanah. So too here, the Hamurakam, when it comes to passing a Hira's Bezdin, they're not going to be chayiv on the Hira if they pass erroneously. Only if all of them were fitting to be part of the Bezdin. If there wasn't the Rosh Hashiva, the Patra, and they pass erroneously, the Patra from Pahalam Dava. From where do we know this halacha? Rav Sheshes said, and so too in the Brais, we learned in the Brais in the base medrash of Rabbi Shmuel. Why did the Chacham say, Hoidu, if the Sanhedrin pass in the Dov Shat Tzdikim Meidim Bay, in something that the Tzdikim are made, Pturim, are they part of Pahalam Dava, because they had to learn this, and they didn't learn it, meaning this Tos was such a Dava Pashit, it's considered as like a mazid, and therefore they cannot bring on their erroneous Hira a Pahalam Dava. And he says, and since they didn't have a Mufla Bebezdin, they shouldn't have rushed to judgment. They should have first taken advice from the Mufla, from the Rosh Hashiva. Nema Sham, the Mishnah finishes off saying there, it says, by Din Nefashis, whenever Khan, and by Pahalam David says also the word Eida, just like the Eida that says by Din Nefashis, so too by Eida. That you're not going to be chayiv on the Eida, until everyone is fit for Eida, for fit to be Dayanim. Like what of a husband alone? How do we know by Din Nefashis that Anoshim who are not Miyuchasim, like a Mamza or Nasan, can psulim to serve as dayanim? Because it says by the Sanhedrin Agdela of the 70 Skenim that Meisha had appointed, according to the Tzibur of Hashem, it says v'yisyatzu sham imach. The word imach is mashma b'doim lecha, similar to you, Meisha, meaning miyuchasim, like you. They have to be miyuchasim, and just like the Sanhedrin Moshe Rabbeinu had to be similar to him, so too the Sanhedrin, when it came to Hira, maybe what does it mean? Imach lishchina, meaning they should stand with you, and they and not go into the makom hashchina. Maybe that was the pshat. Since the Eibishter told Moshe, gather me 70 asfali shimish, so I would have thought that the kavanah is that he should bring them in to a specific place, meaning to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, where the Shekhinah is, and therefore the Eibishter says, "V'yisyatzu sham imach," meaning they should stand outside and not come to the Makom HaShekhinah. Maybe that's the pshat. So it says that Yisrael advised Moshe Rabbeinu to appoint Manasu as Masash Mishpat Itach, meaning Itach B'doimelach, meaning that they should be Miyuchasim similar to you. Okay. Sagt the Mishnah, Heidu Bezdin Sheigigin, if Bezdin had paskined B'sheigig Shaloik Halacha B'asa Kol HaKol Sheigigin, and the whole nation followed suit, and did b'sheigig Mivim Pahalam Dava Shel Tzibur. Then they have to bring a Pahalam Dava Shel Tzibur. Sagt the Mishnah weiter, Mesiden, if Bezdin passing the Mezeh Shaloik Halacha B'asa, and the Kol did Alpim Sheigigin, and they were shaking, the people were shaking him, but Bezdin was amazed. So Mivim, each person has to bring Kisva V'Sar, chatos, and they don't, and Bezdin doesn't bring a Pahalam Dava because Bezdin themselves were amazed, and for the amazed they cannot bring a Pahalam Dava Therefore, only the Yechidim, each Yachid who did B'Shegig Aveda has to bring his own carbon. How about a Bezdin was shaking, Shalek Halach, but also Mezidin. But the Kol knew that it was a mistake. It was and nevertheless they went. They knew it was wrong what Bezdin passed, and nevertheless they went and ate it. So the Mishnah Areil Pturim, they're Patla Gamri, and the Bezdin doesn't bring a par Helam Shaldava, and nor do they bring a Chatz Yachid because they were amazing. So you about a shaking vaso Mezidin. Bezdin passing b'shegig, and the people were mezidin harei lepturim. They're pat legamri, meaning the Bezdin is pat mipar helam dava, and the people are pat from a chates yachid because they were mezidin. So, in fact, hashegig dumi the mezid. You have a case which is shegig dumi the mezid, but if chayiv, so you'll say each one would be chayiv carbon because it's only dumi the mezid. It's a shegig. What's a case of Sheikh doing the maze that we infer that he's chayiv? In which way? Shahidu Bezdin, the Bezdin paskin erroneously shechev mutter. The certain chev was mutter, let's say on the me'ayim, not over the kidneys, the fats over the me'ayim, the nischalafloi, and they exchanged this chatich shel for shuman. Meaning they wanted to eat shuman and they ended up eating chaylev and they ate this chaylev with toes. So in such a case, they didn't do b'mezid because they had no intention of eating the chaylev. And we inferred from our Mishnah Yechayev. So let us answer this shaila that we had that of Rabbi Bachama. If one is chayav achatis in such a case, this exact case we had before, where Rabbi Bachama had a shaila, Amalach, Rabbi Bachama will say you can't bring a rayev to this suffering Mal Mishnah because Mishum Yatana Reisha, because since the Mishnah chapped on first Mezid v'azu shaygin, the Bezdin were Mezidin and the people were shaygin and Tana Seifa, so then the Seifa we learned the reverse shaygin v'as Mezidin, that if it was a reverse case, that it was shaygin and the people were Mezidin, they're going to be potter. But we can't infer a case where Shoygig Dumi the Mezid. He just said it in this reverse to follow the wording, the previous wording of Mezid Melasa Shoygig, and therefore he said the reverse of Shoygig Melasa Mezidin, but not to be able to infer any diyukim from it.